You can really optimize your workflow in DaySmart by taking advantage of templates, and particularly letter templates. You can think of letter templates as pre-formatted documents with variables. So, for example, you might want to have consent forms that you use regularly or discharge instructions that you send with your client when they check out from their appointment, or maybe even dental charts. So let's take a closer look at an example of a consent form. And you'll notice that it looks very similar to a word processor where you'll have a formatting bar on the top and then the body of the document here. And then you'll also notice that we have these words in brackets. Now, these are special data types called variables. Anytime you have data saved already on a patient file or a client file or otherwise, you can save time such that you don't have to type it out. The data will automatically be inserted where this variable is. So for example, the patient name will already be inserted if it's on the file. Let's take a closer look at a live record to see this in action. I'm going to navigate over to a live medical note, so a SOAP for a patient, and I'll go to the Documents tab and add a new letter here. Now I can create this document from scratch, but I'd rather save time and choose one of my templates. I can choose an owner, the client, and I can also choose an author. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and see what this example looks like. And you'll notice that this document is already formatted for me. I don't have to type all this out. And even data from the file is populating for me, such as the patient name, the breed, and so forth. And that is because you'll notice that I have those variables in that place. And I can also edit this document on the live record. It won't affect my master template. I can add or remove things here if I need to for that particular patient or client. So now I'm going to take a closer look. How did I create or save that master template for the letter? Well, I'm going to go to the settings module and I'm going to go to the templates tab, and I can always create a new template down here. I'll always be able to go back to the letters area to view those or edit those later. But I'm going to create a new one right now, and I'll choose the type letter, and I'll give it a name. Let's do a consent form, and I can add more detail here if I want to. So here I have a blank canvas here to work with. And of course, I'll add my text here and then format and add variables. Now, just to point out very explicitly, you do not have to construct letterhead on these. Those will automatically be included for you. In other words, if you have on your settings profile here, your logo and your clinic name, your phone number and your website and email, and then of course you've saved your clinic address here, all that information will automatically be entered into the letterhead if you export that letter. So if you print it or if you email it, that will automatically be included. Let's take a look at that. I'll go back to this letter I was working on, the live letter, and I'll click export. I can email or print that. And in the preview, you'll notice that this letterhead is already pulling from that settings information there. I have my address and my logo there. So let's go back to the example I was working on, this blank one, this demo. And let's take a closer look at the formatting bar. I can, of course, make something bold or italic. I can change a color like I'm used to in a word processor. And if I want to make that bigger, I can click on that paragraph area and make that a larger header. So that increases the font size. Now, behind the scenes, there's an advanced area here for HTML editing. Most people do not use this or even look at it, but that's everything that's working behind the scenes for the web design. We'll leave that alone. Again, most people don't edit that. I'm going to go ahead and enter a table in here from here. And let's say I want a 3x3 table. I would just select that number of boxes there. And I could enter information in here. By the way, this table has these dotted lines in here, and that represents the fact that the table will not display should I print that out. So if I want to give that some depth there, I'm going to click on the table formatting and give it a little bit of width. That way the grid lines will actually display if I print it. Now let's enter a variable here so I don't have to type out that data if it exists. I'm going to go to the left menu here where the variables are and go to the different areas. I'm going to click on the arrow to expand that, patient information. I'm going to place my cursor where I want that information to be entered, and then I'm going to click on name. I want to point out also that I added this identifier. I typed that out because if I hadn't, the data would just sort of be floating and not be represented well. It could be the client's name, and I wouldn't really know the difference. So I think it's a good rule of thumb to type out an identifier like that or give it some context. And then I can also put in some other information like maybe the client name. So I'll go to the owner information, type in identifier, and then find the name here. And if I want to put the last name, I would put a space and the last name. In other words, I want to type it out such that I would in a regular sentence. So I would usually put first name, space, last name if I were typing it out. So I'll do that between the variables as well. And then I'll just adjust this table as I need to make that work. Now, if I'm typing out an actual sentence, I'm going to put a little context there. Maybe I want to say say something about the appointment date. So I would type out something like appointment was on, expand this information here, and I can put the day, I can put a comma, and then the date at some particular time. In other words, I'm adding the comma, some spaces, some punctuation, just like I would in a regular sentence, where I imagine that this data is going to just be inserted in there. Let's take a couple looks at some other options. Let's say this was a prescription document where I want the provider signature at the bottom. I could look to author information, and then I can include the signature here for the provider. That's called author signature. Now that signature is going to be inserted automatically if the staff member has saved on their profile their electronic signature. So that's saved on their profile, and then it will automatically be associated with the author of the letter document and insert automatically for you. Now, if it were a consent form, I would, as a rule of thumb, want to put a client signature at the very bottom of the document, usually for legal purposes. So let's find out where we're going to do that. I'll put a little identifier here, and then I'm going to expand letter information and put this signature field variable right there. Now this is very valuable. By having this variable signature field, it will place an option button on the live letter so that the client can electronically sign this. Let's take a closer look. Now, before I leave this, I want to go ahead and save this template always when I'm done. So I save my changes. And then I'm going to go back to my medical note that I was working in. And I'll go to the Documents tab and add the live letter. I'll pull it from my demo. I'll add the owner, and I'll make sure the author is chosen. And let's see what that looks like. So I have my preformatted document here, and I see that the variables automatically populated the data because that was saved on the files. I have my signature from the staff profile. And you'll notice for the client signature, I have this little dash here. So the data is not being inserted yet. If the data does not exist on the proper file, it's not going to be there. It's just going to be a dash. But by having that signature field variable, just to remind you, I have that at the bottom there. If I scroll back to the top, I'll have this sign letter button right here. That allows me to maybe pass the tablet over to my client, and then they can sign that with their finger. And then that's going to be inserted wherever I have that variable in the document. So it's a good idea to put that at the bottom usually. It's also very useful if you want to send the document to your client ahead of time. We have something called pre-visit confirmation in the configurations, and we can go into that into another video, but that's a great way to have your client sign a document ahead of time through pre-visit confirmation. They can sign it from their phone. Now, I'm going to go back to the settings, and I'm just going to show you that whenever you want, you can go to the templates tab to view and edit those letters that you already have. And there's a gear icon next to them where you can click edit or delete. And you can also duplicate. Now, duplicate is sort of like save as. You can clone a template you've already created so you don't have to start from scratch. For example, maybe I made a neuter consent form and it has most everything I would have in there, but I also want a separate spay consent form. So I would duplicate the neuter one, and then I would just change the name to the spay consent form, and then I don't have to start from scratch. Now, if your account has just been created, you can ask your sales rep to load some templates for you, some letter templates for you to get you started. Or you can always reach out to support and then request that we load those letter templates for you. And you can do whatever you want with those. You can edit those or delete those, but you'll have something to start off with to hit the ground running. And in a follow-up video, we're going to look a little bit more at some advanced features and some more details to take advantage of letter templates even further and how you can use them in appointment types and other things.